Hello, hello. Okay, we are on now. Hi, welcome to another live Hopeful as well. I'm doing this because I'm tired of seeing people with IBS like symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. We're getting fed the same terrible advice over and over again. The advice sets us up for failure, it keeps us sick, keeps people dependent on the system. If you're frustrated with the generic advice that doesn't work, if you're tired of being told just to manage your disease, this live is very much for you. So I'm Samir. I help young adults with autoimmune bowel disease get their lives back. Today, I'm breaking down the three things I will never ask you to do because the science and the anthropology, it shows that they simply do not work for healing. So we're talking about the first piece of advice that I'm going to talk about is actually something that makes the inflammation worse. All right, let's dive in. So the first thing I will never ask you to do when I'm trying to reverse your autoimmune gut health symptoms, gut disease symptoms, is to eat more fiber, especially raw fiber, especially rough fiber. Um, so that means, and I've seen many of my clients come to me and they've been given this advice. Some of them are still taking the kale smoothies, the raw salads, the bran cereals. And the fact is that this is still the go-to advice from pretty every well-meaning doctor and nutritionist, dietitian, and so on, but it is completely backwards for an inflamed gut, right? Now, why would that be the case? First of all, we are not a giraffe, right? We don't have multiple stomachs. Giraffes do, cows do. We're not that kind of an animal that can ferment and break down plant defenses, right? So specifically fiber, we cannot break down fiber. It has to be excreted out of us, right? Now, raw plants are loaded with anti-nutrients, including lectins, oxalates, tannins. These are natural pesticides. When the gut lining is damaged, these compounds irritate it further, acting like scratches on an open wound. That scratches analogy is really spot on, right? Because if you look at what fiber looks like when it's broken down and under a microscope, it looks like little shards of glass, right? Or little sort of almost pins, right? It's abrasive and it can really damage a sensitive and inflamed gut lining. In acute flare ups, the gut needs to rest and it needs easy to digest nourishment, not more work. So instead of asking people to eat more fiber, I would help you to focus on healing the gut lining, first with soothing and nutrient dense foods. Then we can carefully reintroduce specific prepared fibers, fermented fibers, if you want to, at a later point. And what we've seen with many clients is that this reduces trips to the bathroom within a couple of days. The second thing I would never, ever ask anyone to do who is suffering from an autoimmune bowel flare up or any kind of gut health issue would never ask you to just take more meds, right? So I'll never tell you, which is again something I've heard from some doctors, that stronger or more medications are the only answer, right? Now, don't get me wrong, medication can play a role and can play a crucial role in suppressing the symptoms of autoimmune disease and getting the flare ups under control, right? So, in that way, I'm not anti medication. Medications have their place. Many of us have taken allopathic medicines for autoimmune conditions and found relief, right? They have a place. But these are a tool, right? It's not a strategy. You can't just rely on them forever. Now, medications tend to treat the symptom. So in the case of what we're talking about, especially medications that involve steroids, so what we're treating is inflammation in that case, but often they're ignoring the root cause. So why the immune system is attacking in the first place. Um, it's like if you mop up an overflowing sink without turning off the tap, right? That's a good analogy. So your sink is overflowing. You're just trying to clean up the floor. You're not doing anything to address the root of the problem. Yeah. So the goal shouldn't be, if we're talking about Crohn's, if we're talking about ulcerative colitis, we shouldn't be talking about going on a third or a fourth biologic, right? The goal should be to need less of your current medication because your body is healing from the inside out. So instead of just managing symptoms, I want to invite you to identify and remove triggers, diet being a big one, stress, toxins, mold. These could also be triggers that are telling your immune system to attack. This is how we build true and lasting resilience. The third thing I'll never ask, and this is again something that I hear too often, just learn to live with it, right? So I will never ever tell you just to live with it or that this is the new normal. That advice is basically surrender, right? It's telling you to accept a quality of life which is suboptimal, right? It's telling you to accept anxiety, isolation, pain. It's telling you to accept a life of hopelessness. disempowerment, right? Now, why would I say that? And in fairness, I mean, there's certain things like, let's say, God forbid, I were to get hit by a truck tomorrow or something like that, and I would face paralysis. Well, I'd have to get used to that, right? So I'm not saying that that attitude is never appropriate. It might be appropriate in some cases, but it's not appropriate when we're talking about gut autoimmune disease. Why? Because the body wants to heal. The body is designed to heal. Humans did not evolve to live in a constant state of autoimmune attack, right? This is a modern problem that's largely because we're living in environments that are not suited for purpose, not built for purpose, and we have to find a smarter solution. So accepting a life of suffering, I mean, this is in some ways the first noble truth of Buddhism, that life is suffering. Okay, but suffering more than you have to is not necessary, right? The normal that many people would want you to accept is a life of limitation. And I believe normal should be freedom, confidence, and energy. So instead of accepting it, we recommend we fight for the old life back, or whatever your new life would be, a life without constraints, a life of freedom, a life of prosperity, etc., etc. What would that look like? And we would encourage you to find a way to fight for that, right? We work on a mindset of healing and possibility. We build a body that is resilient enough to handle life's adventures again, right? So I'm saying that as if it were a return to the old life, and in some ways it might be, but in some ways I want it to be even better. I want us to learn, come through our disease, and be even better than we were before we were diagnosed as a result of having gone through that disease. Does that make any sense? So to recap, I'll never tell you to A, eat more fiber, B, rely on more meds, or C, just to learn to live with a limited life, okay? So what do? We work on strategy that focuses on root cause healing. We can remove inflammatory triggers, we can heal the gut lining with the right foods, and we can build resilience. If that makes sense to you and you're ready to finally try a different approach, I want to invite you to book a free Zoom strategy session with me. On the call, we'll identify the biggest hidden triggers for your particular flare-ups. Second, we'll map out a 3-step plan to start reducing your symptoms. And 3, we'll see if my group coaching program is the right fit for you. The link to book is in my bio right now. I have a few spots open this week. Book yours right now. So let's see, anyone got any questions, anything like that going on? Not really. I didn't advertise this ahead of time. Apologies for that. I think next week we will try and advertise the live at least a day before it actually happens so more people can join. But for now, if you're watching this after I recorded it, be my guest to leave some questions down below, wherever you're seeing it, whatever platform you're seeing this on, and I will do my best to respond. So thanks so much, and I will see you in the next one.